Hi, Deb Buck here. Today I want to talk about kids with autism and their self-image. First of all, I'm told by adults with autism that they don't say that they have autism. They are autistic. It doesn't make a lot of difference sometimes to other people, but people who are autistic do not want to make it sound like they have something. They are autistic. And I spent years trying to remember to put person first. So I would say people with autism, kids with autism, adults with autism. That's not what they say is what they want. And who knows better about what makes them feel human and feel good about themselves than the person with autism. So adults are giving us a lot of information. Autistic adults are a font of information, and I turn to them frequently to find out, the best way to work with kids. So that's the one thing that I have found, is that to be positive about the word autistic. The next thing is use the word. Many people will say, when should I tell my child they're autistic? Well, like before you even get the diagnosis, if you know it. Use the word autism and autistic around your kids as frequently as you talk about the color of their hair or their cheery personality. It is part of them. So use the word and use it in a very positive way. Telling you to be positive seems obvious, but we're not always positive about it. If you constantly heard that your hair was so hard to deal with, they would start to hate their hair. They would have a poor self-image about how they look. When it's autism, they start to get a poor self-image about how they are, and that's important. Another tip is to use the word autism not only in a positive way, but frequently in a positive way. What I mean by that is, sure to talk about autism and the skills they have because of this. Now, I'm not talking about the most severe cases of autism, but kids that are even nonverbal kids, because everybody has many different skills, and they have skills because they are autistic. My granddaughter was wonderful at remembering things. She still is. Ask her about something that happened many years ago, and she will tell you about it. If you made her a promise and COVID came and nothing happened for a few months, she's not going to forget about that. She has a great memory. So I know that the autism enhances that memory for her. I also know that the autism is one of the reasons she is so friendly. She is the most positive person I know on earth. She has nothing negative to say about anyone, and she sees the best in everyone. These are the kind of things that you can talk about around your child or the student, and make sure that they hear it, not necessarily saying it to them, but about them. So that when they hear autism, they hear positive things about themselves. Another thing is use the word different. I know we don't want them to think they're different. Well, are they? Yes, there are differences. And they know from an early age that there's differences. So what if you say, well, everybody's different? We are all different. And one of my phrases that I use is, we all think differently. We do. But kids with autism need to know that it's okay to be different. And that's why I have the phrase on my logo, we all think differently, so that kids know it's okay to think differently. You don't have to be like everybody else in your class. And then help them see that everybody else in the class is not alike. We tend to group people into this or that. So we want to make sure that they understand that everybody thinks differently, and it's okay to think or do things differently. And finally, I want you to take into consideration that we often use the word special interest when we talk about things that our kids like. But when a neurotypical kid like something like that just as well, maybe even the same topic. Space, some kind of cartoon, whatever game of the year is. All kids get engrossed and get passionate about certain topics. Do kids with autism go a little farther with that sometimes? Sometimes, yes. But embrace their differences in terms of their interests, because they are just interests. They're not special interests. We don't have special interests for kids who are neurotypical, and we're not going to have special interests for kids who are neurodiverse. Here's an example. My granddaughter Gwen. She went through a phase of being so interested in cemeteries. Not a typical interest, but it was okay. And instead of saying, oh, you can't talk about that, oh, that's awful, she was fascinated. I also lived near Savannah, and so she got involved in hearing about a cemetery in Savannah that has lots of stories about it. And so she loved these stories, and she wanted to tell them over and over again. Instead of saying, oh, I don't want to hear about this anymore, what I did was I got her a book on that cemetery, and we went through it. And she would read about these things, and after she got through all of that, she was satisfied with that, and she moved on. So the point is, I'm just saying that when kids have a special interest, think of it not as a special interest. Think of it as their passion, and encourage them. Now, did Gwen get to talk about this topic everywhere she went? No. But what if your neurotypical child was interested in something that had to do with the body, that you didn't want them to talk about every place they went? We have to teach all kids there's a time and a place for things. And Gwen learned very soon that school was not the place to talk about cemeteries. And so we said, this is a home topic. You can talk about it as much as you want at home, but we're not talking about it at school. We're not talking about it in the grocery store. We're not talking about it, and she had her limitations. There were places she could talk about it and places that she didn't. We got involved in it with her. I took her to see that cemetery in Savannah. And actually, she was right. It was pretty interesting. Those are my tips on helping kids improve their self-esteem or their self-image, which are kind of different, but are intertwined. So be sure that you use the word positively. You can go in your bedroom and cry and think about autism, but around the kids, got to be positive. On the phone, when they've got their headphones on, don't assume they don't hear you. Just assume that you need to be positive if they're anywhere near you. Anyway, that's my tips for today, and I'll see you next week.